Hey Jay, Brody man, Snoochie Boochies, and look at this shit, the mad fat chick killer himself. Hey everybody, this is Fernando from The Rollback, and today's movie, I'm going to continue with this whole Kevin Smith deal, and I'm going to be reviewing his second movie in the View Askew universe, Mallrats. So, this movie is interesting, one, because it's the second movie after Clerks, his indie movie that just hit in the box office and hit everywhere, really. It's pretty nuts. So, I mean, Miramax gave him this huge budget when it came to this movie. And ironically enough, this movie was pretty much a commercial bomb. Like, it did not do good in the theaters. Which is crazy because, I mean, for its budget was $6.1 million at the time in 1995, and at the box office made $2.123 million. Now, is that good? No. When you lose money, it's bad. Very, very bad. But in Kevin Smith, in his world, I mean, at this moment, he's building a cult following because he just made Clerks. And so now he's introducing these new characters into the View Askew universe. And of course, we meet some familiar faces like Jay and Silent Bob, who are in all the movies. And this movie centers around Jason Lee, who plays Brody Bruce, and T.S. Quint, played by Jeremy London. Which is weird because he has a brother, and his brother is the main character in Dazed and Confused. So I really can't, I know you can tell the difference, especially if you're if you've seen them both, but for me, I can't, so it's really weird to see him in this movie, but whatever. It also stars Shannon Doherty as Renee Mossier, the girlfriend of Brody, who dumps him, which is what the movie centers around. Brody and T.S. get dumped by the girlfriends, Renee, played by Shannon Doherty, and then Brandy Svennington. I believe that's the name. Brandy Svennington, played by Claire Forlani. Some of you may know her. She doesn't really have too many big credits. I mean, I want to say her biggest one is the 90s hit Boys and Girls with Freddie Prinze Jr. Well, actually, it's a 2000 movie. I always get confused, that early 2000 year. So I always consider it 90s. My bad. But yes, back to the podcast. So yes, the movie centers around T.S. and Brody, who just get dumped by the girlfriends because they both suck at relationships. They very much do. And so they go to the mall and try to de-stress. And I feel like this movie is a bit of a time capsule, so to speak, because the idea of Mallrats is not really a thing anymore. I don't think it is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but kids don't really go to the mall and just hang out. At least from what I've seen. Granted, right now we're in a pandemic, so they're not at the mall right now anyways. But yeah, I feel like the idea of a mall rat, it's a very old term that pretty much got created in the 80s when malls started becoming a really big thing, and then the 90s and the 2000s as well. But, I mean, now I want to say that the term mall rat's not really a thing anymore. So yeah, they go to the mall and they basically try to go and figure out their woes. And through very strange circumstances, they're able to figure out what went wrong and they're able to fix their situation. The thing that I like about this movie is that, again, like Clerks, it's just a pretty normal day. Granted, there's some quips and quirks in the movie, but other than that, I mean, it's a normal day between these two characters who, again, have great dialogue because Kevin Smith is a fucking wordsmith when it comes to dialogue. Also, I want to point out, it is pretty amazing on who you see in the cast, because, I mean, the cast is pretty stacked. I mean, as far as celebrities go, I mean, you have the young Jason Lee coming up in his, I want to say this was pretty much his first starring role. You have a Shannon Doherty from the mid-90s who was hitting big, Jeremy London. You have Claire Forlani, you have Ben Affleck. So, I know I usually go on to tangents when it comes to Ben Affleck. I'm sorry, I'm a fan. Got a problem? If we got a problem, you have every right to fight my cohort Eddie. He calls you all a bunch of sissies. I don't. He called you a bunch of Nancy boys. And I would never say that. So if you want to bare knuckle fight him in the parking lot, he will gladly do so. And he said you better hit hard because last time it felt like a breeze came by. His words, not mine. So yeah. Ben Affleck. It's funny because Kevin Smith talked about how he saw him in some movies prior and he decided to cast him in this movie. And I think at the time Ben Affleck was getting cast as fucking assholes in movies. I mean, School Ties, and then you had him in Dazed and Confused being a dick. So this was his like third movie that he had to play an asshole. And I think Kevin always like makes fun of that until like his next movie after this one that I'm going to be reviewing with Eddie, the one that you Nancy boys, again, his words, not mine. He will fight you. Like, not me, him. We're going to be reviewing Chasing Amy for next week's Rewind. This week, I'm doing Mallrats. So, back again to Ben Affleck. So, yeah, he gets cast as the bad guy in this movie. We get Joey Lauren-Adams, who plays Gwen, who, again, makes another appearance in Kevin Smith's next movie, Chasing Amy. Then we have Jason Mewes as Jay, Kevin Smith as Silent Bob. The both lovable idiots who do nothing, absolutely nothing, but they always do the most. That's always the thing to remember. You have a young Ethan Suplee, and it didn't hit me until I was watching it recently. By recently, I mean like 5 minutes ago. That this is the first time you see Ethan Suplee and Jason Lee together before you see them together in Jason Lee's probably, I want to say it's his peak. I want to say that was his peak. My Name is Earl, where they play brothers. So I mean, it's pretty interesting to see. And then you get to see the man himself, Stan Lee, in his first talking role. I mean, at the time, he had done some cameos and certain things like that, but this is the first time that anyone gave him a real speaking role. And it's funny how, like, the story goes that Kevin Smith had wrote the script, and the producer was reading it, and at one point it says, Brody talks to some comic book guru. He's like, who's this supposed to be? He's like, I don't know, like a Stan Lee type. And the producer's like, why don't we just get Stan Lee? He's like, I don't know Stan Lee. And the producer says, I do. And apparently the producer used to go out to dinner with him and his wife like once a month prior to this. Like, so he knew him pretty well. And he eventually got Stan Lee for the movie. And I think that encompasses one of my favorite stories from the movie. It's the famous scene where Stan Lee's talking to Brody about his love life. And he tells him a story about the one that got away, the girl that got away. And at the time, Stan Lee was married to his wife that he loved dearly, that he stayed with until she had passed away in the 2010s. And he had told Kevin, he's like, you talk about the one that got away. I mean, I don't have one that got away. I have my one. Like, she's there. And Kevin was like, no, I mean, like, you just have to say the line, like, for her. And out of respect for Stan Lee, Kevin Smith had wrote that whole P.S. line to T.S. because we find out soon after that T.S. had told Stan Lee to talk to him. And Stan Lee's like, oh yeah, I told him some story about whatever. And so it was just out of respect for Stan Lee's wife because he loved her so much. He didn't want her to feel bad. He didn't want to die. He was just like, she's going to hate me if I say this stupid story about the one that got away. She's going to be like, who's the one that got away? And yeah, it's one of my favorite little stories from behind the scenes. And yeah, so Mallrats is this very interesting movie that it just takes place in a mall. Like, there's really nothing to it. And I think the weird thing about this one is that, so in the later Kevin Smith movies, Brody owns a comic book shop. And you could tell he's into comics. I mean, you see his house, he has all these comics. But you never really see him at a shop. So I'm wondering if, like, he owns the shop prior to those movies, or it's after this that he finally gets a shop. But that's just my mind wondering. But yeah, it's just about Brody and TS. They go to the mall and they're trying to de-stress. They find out that this game show is being filmed at the mall that TS's girlfriend is going to be on. It's kind of like one of those mid-90s dating shows that everyone fucking hates. So, like, again, this movie is a time capsule. It very much encompasses what the 90s was like. It's very weird. And so they meet Jay and Silent Bob, and you can tell Brody and Jay and have this demeanor together that they're very good friends. And he asks them for a favor to destroy the stage in this miraculous way. And that's the bare bones point of the movie. They go to the mall. They find out TS's girlfriend is going to be on a game show. They find out Brody's girlfriend is going to date this douche, Ben Affleck, and he wants to have sex with her out of spite for Brody. So, actually, you know what? Now I think of it, I think Brody does have his comic book shop, mostly because the guy that Ben Affleck plays is an owner of a men's clothing store, and at one point Brody says that it's his neighbor. So that has me thinking that, yes, that he does own a comic book shop at this point. I'm sorry, like, I'm very spacey. It happens. Leave me alone. Again, fight Eddie if you don't like it. He calls you all Nancy boys. I don't do that. Remember, it's not me that does it. Eddie, if you want to fight him, go for it. He says y'all can't do anything. Again, not my words. But yeah, so again, I was spacing out. And yes, I believe that they're neighbors in business. And Brody and him just have a real bad rapport with each other. So, out of spite, he wants to bang Brody's girlfriend. And that's pretty much the bare bones of it. They're trying to stop their girlfriends/ex-girlfriends from doing things that will harm their future of getting back together. The one thing I want to talk about in this movie is the acting. The acting's very well done, and it's all due to dialogue. I mean, all these characters have these very smart and witty remarks to these situations that are going on around them that it's very strange. And it's funny because, like, I know that Kevin Smith has a following. He has a cult following of a lot of people. But people kind of dismiss it as like, oh, he makes these stupid movies. And granted, yeah, the premise might be stupid, or you might think they're stupid, but the dialogue in these movies is very well done. Like, he knows how to write some fucking dialogue. And he knows how to do it really well. He doesn't half-ass it. Unless you see yoga hosers. I can't help you, Kevin. I'm sorry. I like yoga hosers because I'm a fan. But it's hard explaining that to people. But yeah, like, the dialogue in this movie is really fucking well made. For me, the dialogue is always something that I'll come back to because you remember these lines. You remember that line that I just said in the very beginning of the podcast because it's just very iconic. And so yeah, this movie centers around this very simple premise of these two guys trying to win back the girls that they lost. And quirks and quips happen along the way. You see Jason Lee do a thing where he stops an elevator to talk to his girlfriend while T.S. takes Ben Affleck and he distracts him outside the elevator while they have sex in the elevator. You see dumb things like that happen. Or you see you see Kevin Smith's you see Kevin Smith as Silent Bob run through a changing room door because he's trying to knock out a security guard with a sock filled with coins. He's running full speed ahead, and he's about to smack the piss out of this security guard. And he misses horribly, and he crashes straight into a changing room with Joy Lauren Adams in it, and she smacks him. And again, he tries to knock out that same security guard, flying through the air like Batman. And this is the thing I love about these movies, that Kevin's not one to shy away from his love of comics. Like, he very much delves his love of comics into this movie. You see in the very beginning, when the opening credits roll, with every name, there's a comic book cover. And it's funny because I was reading that Marvel was more... they were more susceptible to do this kind of deal, like with Kevin Smith, and do these little album covers, because, I mean, at the time, Marvel was selling off, like, their movie rights, things of that sort of characters, so they had to do what they had to do, and DC wasn't, and I feel like that's on DC. That sucks to be you, man, because this dude loves your comics, and you don't know it yet, but he's going to have a huge cult following, especially because of this movie. Which is weird because it was a commercial bomb. But this movie, I would say it's fair to say that this movie started the Kevin Smith fandom. I mean, Clerks is amazing. It's an amazing piece of art. Like, that's without a doubt. But Mallrats is what got people into the universe. It made them feel like, man, I belong here. And that's the thing that I've always liked about these type of movies, these Kevin Smith movies, is that it's not, you don't feel like you're out of touch. Like, you see some of these Oscar movies and you're just like, fuck, dude, like, I don't feel like this is made for me. I don't feel like I belong in this movie. And then when you watch these movies, for the most part, you're like, these are my fucking friends. Like, you feel like you know these people. And it's very odd. You feel like you've seen these people in your daily lives. You feel like you know a Brody, you know a TS, you know a Ben Affleck douche character, you know a Shannon Doherty, you know someone that's in this movie. And that's what I love about these movies, is that while, yes, they have very silly premises, they're not the greatest movies ever, they're not Oscar worthy, they are the reason that a lot of people come back to the well, is because we feel an attachment. There's a reason why he has such a following. There's a reason why he has everything he has. For me, Kevin Smith will always be the type of guy who saw the door to Hollywood and found that crack next to it and was like, you know what, man? Like, I'm gonna fit in, even if you don't want me here. Like, yeah, you can have the door locked all you want, but I'm getting in here. And he fucking did that. He really did do it. It's crazy that he was able to get into Hollywood, because look at him, man. Like, Clerks is not something that you really saw before. The only thing that I could think of, at least at the time, was Slackers. And ironically enough, that's the inspiration behind Clerks. And so, like, this movie, I like that Kevin just got to be fun. He got to be really fun with this movie. And you got to see a bunch of these young budding actors, like a Jason Lee, who's a fucking killer. Especially now, like, I mean, well, not now, but in the middle of 2000s, late 2010s, the dude was doing some really good work acting. I mean, one of my favorite roles of his is Almost Famous, where he plays the guitarist. I mean, not the guitarist, the lead singer. My bad, Jason Lee. You played the lead singer. But yeah, like, I mean, you see a young Jason Lee that, again, Kevin had this very good eye for young talent and was able to produce it. I mean, Ben Affleck as well. He was still one of those guys that was like, at the time, no one thought he was going to be a leading man at all. No one in the industry. And it was really just Kevin Smith who was like, no, dude, like, this guy's a fucking star. Like, he's going to make it. And you get Jeremy London in this movie. You get Shannon Doherty, who's a fucking killer in the 90s. I mean, dude, like, this movie, it's one of a kind. It really is. All the View Askew movies, all the Kevin Smith movies are all one of a kind movies that you don't see anywhere else. I mean, there's plenty of comedies that you watch and you're just like, oh, it's basically that movie. Hangover. Hangover's basically Bachelor Party. But yeah, sorry. Like, I like to go off on these little tangents sometimes, and I apologize. But yeah, like, I mean, for me, it's been a while since I've seen Mallrats. So to watch it again, it was like I was visiting my friends again. That's the feeling I got when I watched this movie. It really felt like I was visiting my friends. And for me, that's what a lot of these Kevin Smith movies do. For me, this movie's one of my top Kevin Smith movies because it's such a funny movie. I really highly recommend it to people, especially if you like these type of comedies but with witty dialogue. And holy shit, I did not realize I already crossed 20 minutes. It's not a rule of mine to cross 20 minutes or anything. Just very surprising. And that's usually like the amount of time I do for a review, especially on these way back Wednesday rewinds. So, again, please check out this movie. It is on every streaming platform available. Check it out. It's a good time, I promise. And if you're listening to us at the Rollback, please check us out on Spotify, iTunes, Google. And please check out our written reviews at therollback.net. I just put out a new one for my season review for the first season of the HBO Plus show, Home Before Dark. All my other cohorts have various written reviews. I'm a little bit newer, so I only got 2. I have Stranger Things Season 1 and Home Before Dark. But please check us out. And if you find us on Facebook, please like. We post about which ones we're going to do next and things of that sort. Again, Snoochie Boochies, everybody. This is Fernando from The Rollback. Cut it.